What would you do if you discovered that the person sleeping next to you every night had been slowly stealing your life, piece by piece, dollar by dollar, until the only choice left was to disappear or die trying? 911, what's your emergency? My wife, she's not breathing. But here's what he didn't tell them. She had been planning to leave him, and he knew it. This is the story of Emma Sullivan and the silence that killed her. Maple Ridge, Connecticut, October 15th, 2024. A town where secrets hide behind white picket fences and morning coffee conversations never dive too deep. Emma Sullivan lived at 247 Birchwood Lane, a two-story colonial that looked like it belonged on a Christmas card. Perfectly manicured lawn, seasonal decorations that changed like clockwork, and 4 golden retrievers that were the envy of every dog lover in the neighborhood. To everyone who knew her, Emma had it all. A successful career as a senior financial analyst at Morrison & Associates, a beautiful home, and a husband who seemed devoted. But sometimes the most dangerous prisons are the ones that look like paradise. Let me tell you about Emma. Born Emma Catherine Walsh in 1991, she grew up in a middle-class family in Hartford. Her father was a mechanic, her mother a school nurse. They taught her the value of hard work and independence, lessons that would both save and doom her. Emma was the girl who balanced her checkbook in high school, who worked 2 jobs to pay for college, who graduated summa cum laude with a degree in finance from UConn. She wasn't the loudest person in the room, but she was always the most prepared. In 2018, she met Lamar Sullivan at a corporate networking event in Boston. He was charming, attentive, and seemed genuinely interested in her dreams of starting her own financial consulting firm. He was a construction project manager, or so he said, with big plans and bigger promises. They married in 2020, a small ceremony during the pandemic. Emma's friends would later say she seemed happy, but looking back, they realized she had become quieter, more careful with her words, always checking her phone as if she was expecting bad news. The dogs came first. Emma had always wanted pets, and Lamar seemed supportive. She named them after seasons: autumn, winter, spring, and summer. They became her world when her human world started to shrink. Because here's what Emma's coworkers started to notice in 2024. She stopped talking about weekend plans. She declined after-work drinks. She never mentioned vacations or date nights. When asked about her marriage, she'd smile and change the subject. Just keeping busy with house stuff became her standard response. But Emma wasn't just keeping busy. She was keeping track of every dollar, every conversation, every small betrayal that was slowly building into something much more dangerous. The first red flag should have been the credit cards. In January 2024, Emma discovered 3 credit cards in her name that she had never applied for. When she confronted Lamar, he had a reasonable explanation. He'd help her apply during tax season to consolidate their debt. "I thought you knew," he said, with that smile that used to make her feel safe. The cards had a combined limit of $25,000. They were maxed out. Emma worked in finance. She understood debt interest rates and the long-term consequences of financial decisions. What she was seeing didn't make sense. According to their joint account, they should have been comfortable. Her salary was $78,000 a year, and Lamar claimed to be making $65,000 in construction management. But when Emma started digging, and yes, she started investigating her own husband like he was a suspicious client, the numbers didn't add up. Lamar hadn't worked full-time in over 8 months. His last paycheck, according to the bank deposits, was in February 2024. When she asked about it, he said work had been slow, that he was transitioning to a new company, that something big was coming. "Trust me, Em," he'd say, using the nickname only he was allowed to use. "I'm handling it."
If you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video.
But Emma was a numbers person, and the numbers were screaming. In March 2024, she found the loan applications hidden in Lamar's desk drawer, along with utility bills that were 2 months overdue and a foreclosure notice on a property she didn't know they owned. The loan applications were for amounts that made her stomach drop: $50,000, $100,000, and one for $500,000. All using her credit score, her employment information, her signature. Signatures that looked close to hers, but weren't quite right. That night, Emma lay in bed next to her husband and realized she was sleeping next to a stranger who was systematically destroying her financial life while she slept. She started making plans. Emma opened a new bank account at a credit union across town. She used her maiden name and her work address. Every week, she transferred small amounts, $100 here, $200 there. Nothing large enough to trigger alerts on their joint account. She researched divorce attorneys. She looked up financial abuse resources. She created fake email accounts to communicate with lawyers without leaving a digital trail on their shared computer. Emma was methodical, careful, and absolutely terrified. Because she had started to notice other things too. The way Lamar monitored her phone, how he always wanted to know where she was going, who she was seeing, how he'd become angry, not violent but cold and calculating, when she questioned anything about their finances. The dogs sensed it too. Autumn, her oldest golden retriever, started staying close to Emma, as if protecting her. The others became more nervous, jumping at sounds, clustering together. Emma scheduled a consultation with divorce attorney Sarah for October 20th. She planned to take a sick day, meet with a lawyer, and figure out how to untangle herself from the financial nightmare her marriage had become. She never made it to that appointment. October 15th started like any other Tuesday in Maple Ridge. Emma's alarm went off at 6:30 a.m. She let the dogs out, started the coffee, and checked her phone for work emails. What she didn't know was that Lamar had already been awake for 2 hours. At 4:30 a.m., Lamar had accessed Emma's laptop while she slept. He'd found everything: the secret bank account, the lawyer consultations, the divorce research, and most damaging of all, a detailed spreadsheet titled Exit Strategy that outlined exactly how Emma planned to leave him. The spreadsheet was thorough, as everything Emma did was thorough. It included projected living expenses for a one-bedroom apartment, estimated legal fees, and a timeline for separating their assets. At the bottom, in Emma's careful handwriting, was a note: file protective order if needed. Document financial abuse. Lamar realized that Emma wasn't just planning to leave him. She was planning to expose him. According to phone records later recovered by police, Emma received a text message at 6:45 a.m. from her sister. "Coffee later? You sounded stressed yesterday." Emma replied, "Can't today. If I don't text back by tonight, call me." That was the last message Emma would ever send. At 7:15 a.m., neighbors reported hearing the dogs barking frantically, unusual for the well-trained golden retrievers who rarely made noise. The barking stopped suddenly at 7:23 a.m. Mrs. Edwards, who lived next door, would later tell police that she saw Lamar loading the dogs into Emma's SUV at around 7:30 a.m. She thought it was odd because Emma usually drove them to the vet, and it wasn't their usual appointment day. But Mrs. Edwards minded her own business, as neighbors in Maple Ridge were taught to do. At 8:47 a.m., Lamar called 911. 911, what's your emergency? Lamar breathing heavily. It's my wife. I think I found her unconscious. She's not breathing. Sir, I need you to check for a pulse. Are you with her now? Yes, no, there's no pulse. Oh God, there's blood. But here's what Lamar didn't tell the 911 operator. Emma had been dead for over an hour, and he had spent that hour carefully staging a scene. When paramedics arrived at 247 Birchwood Lane, they found Lamar sitting on the front steps, his clothes stained with blood, his hands shaking. He looked like a man in shock, a grieving husband who had just lost everything. The paramedics rushed inside and found Emma in the master bedroom, lying beside the bed. She had suffered severe blunt force trauma to the head. A household iron, broken in half, lay nearby. But the experienced paramedic, Janet Torres, noticed something that bothered her. The blood pattern on Lamar's clothes wasn't consistent with someone who had just discovered a body. It was consistent with someone who had been present during the violence. She made a note in her report. That note would later save the case. The most chilling detail? The dogs were nowhere to be found. All 4 of Emma's beloved golden retrievers had vanished, and Lamar claimed he had no idea where they were. Detective Sarah Jones had worked homicide for 12 years, but the Emma Sullivan case felt different from the moment she stepped into that house on Birchwood Lane. The scene was too clean. Not clean as in sanitized, but clean as in controlled. There were no signs of forced entry, no indication of a struggle outside the bedroom, no evidence of a burglary gone wrong. But what bothered Detective Jones most was Lamar Sullivan himself. He was sitting there covered in his wife's blood, Jones would later testify, but he wasn't asking about the dogs. His wife is dead, his house is a crime scene, and he's not asking where his 4 dogs are. That struck me as unusual. The first major break came from Emma's phone records. Her iPhone, found charging on the nightstand, showed her last activity at 11:43 p.m. on October 14th, a banking app transaction moving $300 from her joint account to her secret account. But the phone's health app, which tracked movement and heart rate through her Apple Watch, told a different story. Emma's heart rate spiked dramatically at 6:52 a.m., jumping from a resting 65 beats per minute to 134. At 6:54 a.m., it flatlined. The watch had been manually disconnected from the phone at 7:18 a.m., 24 minutes after Emma was already dead. Detective Jones obtained surveillance footage from a gas station 2 miles from the Sullivan home. The timestamp showed Emma's white SUV pulling in at 7:35 a.m. The driver, wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses, spent less than 3 minutes inside. The surveillance showed him purchasing 4 large trash bags and a roll of duct tape. But the real breakthrough came when a local animal rescue volunteer called the police station. She had found 4 golden retrievers abandoned at different locations along Route 9, each about 2 miles apart. The dogs were microchipped and registered to Emma Sullivan. 3 of the dogs were found alive, hungry and scared but unharmed. The 4th dog, Summer, was found dead in a sealed trash bag near a construction site. That's when we knew we weren't dealing with a crime of passion, Detective Jones explained. This was calculated. The disposal of the dogs required time, planning, and multiple trips. This wasn't someone who snapped in a moment of anger. The veterinary examination of Summer revealed she had died from suffocation, not trauma. She had been alive when placed in the bag. Scratch marks inside the plastic showed she had tried to escape. This detail would haunt everyone involved in the case. Emma's beloved dog, who had done nothing but love her, had been killed to eliminate a witness.
If you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video.
By October 18th, Detective Jones had enough evidence to bring Lamar in for questioning. But when she sat across from him in interview room 2, she encountered something she hadn't expected. Lamar Sullivan wasn't nervous. He wasn't grief-stricken. He was calculating. "I want to help find who did this to Emma," he said, leaning forward with what appeared to be genuine concern. "She was everything to me." But when Detective Jones showed him the surveillance footage of his vehicle at the gas station, Lamar didn't flinch. "That's not me driving," he said simply. "Someone must have taken Emma's car. Who would have access to her keys, Mr. Sullivan?" Lamar smiled, and said, "Detective, you're asking the wrong questions." That's when Detective Jones realized she wasn't just investigating a murder. She was playing chess with a sociopath. The deeper Detective Jones dug into the Sullivans' finances, the more she understood that Emma hadn't just been murdered. She had been systematically destroyed long before that fatal morning. Financial forensics specialist Thomas Kim was brought in to untangle what the prosecutor later called one of the most sophisticated cases of financial abuse they had ever seen. Here's what they discovered. Lamar Sullivan had been forging Emma's signature for over 2 years. Credit cards, loan applications, insurance policies, all opened in Emma's name, all signed with her forged signature, all used to fund Lamar's secret life. But this wasn't random fraud. This was strategic warfare. Lamar had been researching Emma's daily routines, her work schedule, even her menstrual cycle to time his financial attacks when she would be most vulnerable or distracted. He had installed tracking software on her laptop to monitor her banking activity. When Emma started moving money to her secret account, Lamar knew within hours. This wasn't a husband stealing from his wife, Kim explained. This was a predator who had studied his prey for years, learning exactly how to destroy her financially without her realizing it until it was too late. The loan applications told the most chilling story. Lamar had been applying for increasingly large amounts, $25,000, then $50,000, then $100,000. Each application was more sophisticated than the last, with forged pay stubs, fake employment records, and Emma's perfect credit score as collateral. The final application, found hidden in Lamar's truck, was for $750,000. It was dated October 14th, the day before Emma died. But here's the twist that would change everything. Emma had discovered this application. Digital forensics found that Emma had photographed this document with her phone at 11:32 p.m. on October 14th. She had also sent herself an email with the photos and a note, evidence of forgery. Show the lawyer tomorrow. Lamar had access to Emma's email. He knew she had found the smoking gun. He knew she was going to destroy him. The investigation revealed that Lamar wasn't just stealing from Emma, he was stealing from multiple women. Police found evidence of at least 3 other relationships where he had convinced women to give him access to their finances. One woman, Jennifer Johnson, no relation to Emma, came forward after seeing Lamar's photo in the news. She had dated him for 6 months in 2022, during which time he had stolen $15,000 from her bank account and destroyed her credit. "He made me feel like I was crazy," Jennifer told Detective Jones. "When money went missing, he'd say I must have spent it and forgotten. When bills didn't get paid, he'd say it was my fault for not staying organized. He made me doubt my own reality." Another woman, Lisa Martins, had a similar story. Lamar had convinced her to co-sign a loan for his business venture. When the business failed and the loan went into default, Lisa lost her house. "The scary part," Lisa said, "was how good he was at making it seem like love. Like everything he did was to protect me or help our future together. Right up until the moment he disappeared with my life savings." Detective Jones realized that Emma wasn't Lamar's first victim. She was just the first one who had figured out how to fight back. And that's what had gotten her killed. On October 20th, 5 days after Emma's death, Detective Jones sat across from Lamar Sullivan one final time. She had enough evidence to charge him, but she wanted to understand the man who could systematically destroy someone he claimed to love. "Tell me about the morning of October 15th, Detective Jones said. Lamar leaned back, completely relaxed. "I told you, Detective. I woke up around 8:30, went to check on Emma, and found her unconscious. I called 911 immediately. Your phone records show you were awake and active from 4:30 a.m. that morning. I couldn't sleep. I was worried about Emma. She'd been acting strange lately." Detective Jones slid a photograph across the table. It was the forged loan application Emma had discovered. Strange how. For the first time, Lamar's composure cracked slightly. His jaw tightened. "I don't know what that is." "It's a loan application for $750,000, signed with your wife's forged signature. She photographed it the night before she died." Lamar said nothing. "She was going to expose you, wasn't she? All of it. The forged signatures, the stolen identity, the other women you'd scammed. Emma was going to destroy the perfect life you'd built on lies." Lamar smiled, that same cold smile that had chilled Detective Jones from the beginning. ND with Lamar's conviction. "Emma was naive," he said finally. "She thought life was like her spreadsheets. Everything neat and organized, with clear rules and predictable outcomes. But life isn't a balance sheet, Detective. So you killed her." "I protected my interests." Those 4 words, "I protected my interests," were the closest thing to a confession Lamar would ever give. But it was enough. On October 25, 2024, Lamar Sullivan was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, financial fraud, and animal cruelty. His bail was set at $2 million. The trial began in March 2025. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence: the forged documents, the surveillance footage, the timeline inconsistencies, the financial abuse pattern, and the systematic disposal of Emma's dogs to eliminate witnesses. Lamar's defense attorney argued that Emma's death was accidental, the result of a domestic argument that got out of hand. They claimed Lamar panicked and made poor decisions in the aftermath. But the jury saw through the facade. On April 18, 2025, Lamar Sullivan was convicted on all charges. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As he was led away in handcuffs, Lamar showed no emotion, no remorse, no anger, no grief for the woman he had claimed to love. Emma's sister, Rebecca, read a victim impact statement that brought the entire courtroom to tears. Emma never got to start her consulting firm. She never got to travel to Ireland like she always dreamed. She never got to experience real love, the kind that builds you up instead of tearing you down. But Emma fought back. Even in death, she found a way to stop him from hurting anyone else. Emma's story didn't end with Lamar's conviction. The 3 surviving dogs, Autumn, Winter, and Spring, were adopted together by Emma's sister Rebecca, who wanted to keep the family Emma had built intact. Emma's secret bank account, the one she had been building for her escape, contained $4,200. Rebecca used that money to establish the Emma Sullivan Foundation, which helps women recognize and escape financial abuse. The foundation has helped over 200 women in its first year, providing financial counseling, legal assistance, and emergency funds for women trying to leave controlling relationships. Detective Jones kept one of Emma's case files on her desk as a reminder. not of the violence, but of the victim who refused to stay silent even after death. Emma never got to tell her story while she was alive, Jones reflected. But every piece of evidence she left behind was her way of speaking. The secret bank account, the photographs of forged documents, the lawyer appointments. She was building a case against him even when she didn't know her life was in danger. The case led to changes in Connecticut law. The Emma Sullivan Act now requires banks to implement additional verification procedures for large loan applications and provides protections for victims of financial abuse. But perhaps Emma's greatest legacy is simpler than legislation or foundations. Her story has been shared thousands of times online, and each time, someone recognizes the signs. Someone realizes they're not crazy, they're not bad with money, they're not imagining things. They're being systematically controlled. And because of Emma's story, they know they're not alone. Sullivan was 33 years old when she died. She was methodical, careful, and absolutely determined to reclaim her life. She didn't get the chance to escape, but her silence was broken. And sometimes that's how justice begins, not with a scream, but with someone finally hearing the quiet voice that was there all along. If Emma's story sounds familiar, if you recognize the signs in your own life or someone you love, remember this: you are not alone. Your reality is valid, and there is a way out. Emma would want you to know that. This has been The Silent Escape. If you or someone you know is experiencing financial abuse or domestic violence, help is available. Resources and contact information are in the description below.
Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes the most important stories are the ones told in silence. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.